Welcome back to the craft room, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, Happy Shoelaces, whatever you like. I'm actually recording this on New Year's Day, so I hope it was good for you last night and your family. But anyway, what we're making today, I hope I said everything right, is this. You might have seen it on the title card. This is my hat. Now, if you're like me and you got a lot of brains, not many hats fit you. And so I'd gone through all the stores trying to find a hat that would fit me. Let me put it on and show you. And I came up with this. And I thought, well, there must be other people with lots of brains too. So you need a hat as well. So I thought I'd make this tutorial for you. It's all done with crochet. All done with one ball of wool to make this hat. If your hat is different in any way, you might need a little bit more. I'll get into that in just a sec. It is done with granny stitches on the top for ventilation, just in case our big brains overheat. We've also got granny stitches around here for the sweat line, and it's all done with cotton and a hoop. So the cottons I have used is these cottons here, and I will show them to you more in the next part of the video, but they're all 100% cotton, and they're all of 8 ply or a number 4 weight. These ones are called Abbey Road. I think they're called Freedom Cotton. Yes, Freedom Cotton. There's a whole heap of different colours in this, and I get these from Spotlight. But if you don't have a Spotlight, you need, like I said, a number 4 weight or 8 ply cotton. A bit more details than that when we start the video. You will also need 2 hooks. You need a 5 and a 4. So the letters for those, let me see if I can read it. No, I can't read that one, but I can read this one. This one is a O, or a 7 if you use the UK terminology. But that's a 4mm in the terminology we use, and a 5. And you will also need a hoop. Now this is for the brim. Don't use this one because this one's rusty, but the only one I didn't have occupied at the moment. What you need the hoop size to be is the size you want your brim to be. So like, I wouldn't use this because it's not giving me very much of a brim around my head. So you got to think how big you want it to be, and that's the size hoop you need to get. And you'll also need some stitch markers and a bit of time. And talking about time, this, once you have the pattern, this should only take you about a day to do, and that's only working in daylight, so about 8 hours. It is just double crochets and single crochets and chains, but no fancy stitches, fairly quick make and beginner friendly. And I think we'll get into the video now. So this is a closer look at the hat, and I'm going to call this my granny square hat. It's not a square, but it uses granny stitches in the crown and on the beginning of the brim, and that's what I want to call it. So it's a basically it's a form fitting hat, but not a tight hat. This stitches that I've used here and here allow it to adjust to nearly any size head. You can adapt this part here to fit you better. You can also make it a messy bun beanie type hat by starting on this row here and then working it around a hair lacking, so that you can do that as well. And what it is, you need your ring that I talked about. I have tried it with whippersnipper cord, or I think they're called weed whacker cord, but it bends back on itself too much. So I've got the hoops like the mandala hoops. You just get it the size you want, because you can make the brim whatever size you like. So it's whatever size hoop you get, that's how big your brim on your hat is. So the yarns that I've used, I'll just show you some more of them. I showed you one in the beginning, is the Abbey Road. It is pure cotton, and it comes in some really beautiful colours. I'll move that across and get these two. There is more than this. These are just the ones I have. And I might make this one in maybe the blues. The blues. Yeah, I'm not doing the blues. So, sorry. So it uses a 4mm hook and it has 210 meters. So if you have your own cotton that you'd like to use, I like to make sun hats in cotton. They will fade out, but at least you know you can wash it. It has got a bit of protection to the sun, stuff like that. 4mm hook to use with it, 100% cotton. So that's what this one. This is not mercerized, but I have never had a problem with knots and fuzzing up with these. So that's the one I'm going to use. The other thing you need a 5mm. What is wrong with my talking? A 5mm hook and a 4mm hook. There we are. I was very lucky. I got given a Etimo tulip set for Christmas. I'm very, very happy with it. It's been on my wish list for a while. So a 5 and a 4. 4 is what the yarn needs, but we use a 5 for the crown and the sides, just so that they're a bit looser and it can sit on your head better. So we're going to start with the 5. And I'll move that out the way, and I'm going to write out what we're going to do. So step 1, put the glasses on. Make sure I'm on the screen, and I'm going to say it as I write it. We'll do a magic ring. Now if you want to do a chain 4 and join it together, you can do that. Then we're going to go chain 2. And then into the ring, you want to put 2 DC. And then you want chain 1, 3 DC. And then we want to do this 5 times. And then we want to chain 1 and join with slip stitch to first DC. And what that'll end up giving us is 6 granny clusters right in the middle. So they are up here. This is our first row. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's what we're aiming for, the middle, and they've got a chain 1 between them. So this is 6 clusters. Okay, so we will do that first. This is with our 5mm hook. So we're making the crown and a 5mm hook. Okay. All right, that's step 1. Let's just put this back, move that out the way. Now we got to find the middle. Now, the way I usually find the middle, because I don't know how old this yarn is and if anybody's played with it. Hopefully, I got this when they first put it on the rack. And so the middle is still fairly tidy, and I just pull the middle. And if you go back to 1 string, it means you do have the end in your hand. I'll just put that out the way and reel back so we can find the... Now for the Australian crocheters, this might be a little bit loose, but for the American crocheters, this should be the tension or close to the tension you're used to working with. Our 8-ply is approximately, I think, your light worsted. It's a number 4 weight, if that helps. And from the American patterns I've seen, you generally use a 4.5 to a 5 for that weight of yarn. So this should be fine for you. So we're going to make a, let me just make sure the focus is right. We're going to make a magic ring. So we go like this, and we make an X with this one on top. We go under the one we had already, pull it through, twist, and then pick up. This does not count as a stitch. That's just holding all the ring bits together. So now we go chain 2, 1 and 2, and then 2 DC. 1 and 2. Alright, that's the first bit done. See how it looks like a cluster? Then we go chain 1, 3DC. 1, 2, 3. Another chain 1, making sure you're always going over the 2 strands. You don't lose one. You need to make sure all your stitches are over 2 strands of the magic circle, magic ring, whatever you want to call it. Make sure we haven't done too many before our next chain. Another one. Trying to do it slowly so you can see what I'm doing. And another one. Put a chain in, then count how many we've done. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got number 5 here. And 3. Let me know if you want me to try and put music on it. I don't usually, because it actually annoys me on YouTube when there's music, but I can try to put some on if people would like it. I don't know what I'd put on. Find something that's not too annoying. What about you? But I don't mind a bit of silence. Unless you want to listen to me count, which I try not to do too much. Alright, so that should be our 6th one. Let's just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, right. Okay, so we did our 5 of those. So now we do a single chain 1. Now, to join your magic ring, you pull this. That's your loose bit, and pull it quite tight. And then we want to join with a slip stitch to the first DC. That is here on the top. This is our chain. Hopefully you can see this. This is our chain. This is our first DC, sorry. And we go into the top under both loops. Pull out and pull out. So that's joining with a slip stitch because we didn't pick up a loop. Now, one little thing that I like to do, turn it over, make this as tight as you can, and then do a double overhand knot. So that's 1 pull through, 2 pull through. I just do this for my own peace of mind while I'm working. And what it does, you probably heard me say this heaps, is it puts a little surface knot right where it may loosen off. Just a little impediment so that it's not going to annoy you. So that's that first lot done. Bring my notes over here. So number 2 is we want to slip stitch into next chain 1 space. Right, that's a comma. Chain 2. So when you're reading patterns, you read to your punctuation, because what's within a punctuation is an action. Can you see that? I hope you can see that. So when you go to read, so you don't get confused, don't read, we can read the whole row, but when you go to do it, read to the punctuation. So this here is one instruction. This here is the next instruction. And then after that we have 2DC, chain 1, 3DC. So that's our beginning corner or cluster. I think it's clusters. Comma. Now I'm going to put a bracket here. Chain 1. And then we want to skip the cluster. That's our sign for cluster. Skip cluster. And we want 3DC, chain 1. So if we're skipping the cluster, that means the 3DC goes into the 1 chain space from the row before. That's a chain 1 and then 3DC again, and then the end of the bracket. And then you want to repeat this 5 times. But wait, we're not done yet. We want to chain 1, join with a slip stitch to first DC, and I will tell you how many clusters that'll be when we get there. So we're still attached here, but our first instruction, slip stitch into the next chain 1 space. Now that shouldn't be too far away. So that's 1 that gets us into the middle, and then 2 gets us into the chain 1 space. So that's put us into the chain 1 space. Then we want to chain 2, 1 and 2, and then put 2 DCs next to it. 1, 2, and then a chain 1 and 3 DC, because it hasn't said jump anything here. So all of this is into this same spot. 2 and 3. Alright, so we've got that. So now it does say to chain 1. Then we want to skip the cluster, and we want 3 DC, 2, 3, chain 1, 2, 3, Alright, so that's the first 2 lots done. So we are putting a chain 1 here, and we are putting a chain 1 here. So we're still putting chain 1s between each 3DC cluster. So we'll go on to the next one. We're repeating this 5 times around. So theoretically, if we're putting 2 clusters in every hole, we should have double the amount of clusters that we did on the last row. So that means we should have 12 clusters. Let's see if we are correct. I'm not going to make you sit through me doing all of the rows. I'll just do this row. That's 3, yes, chain 1, find the next one. And the reason why I'm using such a big hook in here than what I would normally is I want the crown to be a bit softer so that the stitches will open up. I find cotton can get quite hard if you go too close to the recommended size. We want a hat that lasts, but we also want to be comfortable wearing it. So that's those 2. Pull this out a bit more. I picked this one because there's no white in it, which means the whole hat will be coloured like the green and pink one that I already did. Some of the other ones have a bit of white in them, and it gives you blank spots. It's alright for other things, but I didn't want it in the hat. Just a bit on the side for you. 1. We are nearly there. 3, chain 1, and then into the middle. And if you're liking the videos that I'm making, please subscribe and like and share them. That way more people see it, and then we can make more. So that is that row done. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Double the amount on the last row. So that equals 12 clusters. Alright, let's put this down. And we need to write the third one in. Would it be a good idea to put a line through under them? I think it would be. And then I'll put a line under this one, that way we know which ones we're talking about. So for our third row, once again we slip stitch into next chain 1 space. Right, that's a code for space. Then we want to chain 2 DC in same space, and then we want our bracket. So our bracket is chain 1, skip cluster, 3 DC, and go like that, and then we're going to repeat times 11 because we just did the first one there, so that's 1 in every space that we did before. Once we've done that, we want to join with a slip stitch to first DC. Alright, now we also have a measurement at the end of this one for your gauge, so I'm just going to write gauge here. So once we get this third row done, you should measure 3.5 inches or 8 centimeters or 8 centimeters, and then that's measuring across. So like imagine that's your work. I'm still on the screen, I hope so. Where's my hand? There it is. And it's measuring across here, side to side. That's how big it should be. So I'm just going to do the first bit of that, and then I will come back when the row is finished. So we need to slip stitch across. It should only be 2 slip stitches to get you to the next chain 1 space. And then we're chaining up 2 and then 2 DCs. Right, so we're not doing increasing in every one now. We are just doing a single cluster. And then chain 1, yes. So this is just all the way around like so. And I will be back when I'm about to measure it. I have finished this row, and let's just give it a quick measure. Flatten it out a little bit so it's roundish. So that is a whisker under 3.5 inches and right on 8 centimeters. So I'm on gauge. Amazing. So the next thing we got to do is step 4. Once again, we are slip stitching into next chain 1 space. Then we're going to chain 2 because we know we've got to do granny clusters. So we can also do that. Now we've got to read the instructions. Yep, I was correct. Cool. Now, we want to chain 3. Okay, that is different. Skip a cluster, 3 DC, skip a cluster again. Oh, I wrote the whole word then, sorry. Skip a cluster again, then we want to chain 2 and then 3 DC, and then that goes like that, and then we're going to repeat times 6. Now we know we had 12 here, but we're doing 2 different things. This is a chain 2, this is a chain 3. Once we've done that, we join with a slip stitch to first DC. Okay, so what this is doing, it is setting us up to expanding the circle. And while it may look odd on this row, it won't be odd when the other rows sit on top of it. You will see what I mean, I promise. So let's just do I'll do one whole lot of this, and then I'll go back and do the rest of the row. So first thing we do, like we have been the whole time, 2 slip stitches gets us into the next space, and then we want to chain 2 and 2 DCs. That makes our first cluster, and as you can see, my yarn has changed colour, now a deeper blue. Then we want to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. We are skipping this cluster and we're doing 3 DCs in here, making another cluster, 2 and 3. Right, so now skip another cluster, chain 2, 1, 2, and then another 3 DCs, 1, 2 and 3. Now because we're repeating this, we go back to the beginning, we've got another chain 3, 1, 2, 3, do the next cluster and 3, then the next one is a chain 2, skip a cluster and do the next cluster into the next chain space, 2 and 3. So I just did two repeats just so you can see. So I will get to the end of this and I'll be back to show you what to do next. That's that one done. And I forgot to say here, your last after your last granny stitch is a 2 chain, because it's the end of a repeat. You don't have the last 3 DC. I have written it in here, so it does end up being 6 without that very last one, because the very last one becomes the one you started with up here. So that's that bit done. So we will draw a line under here just so we know what each row means. I will be showing you this this part of the pattern at the end as well, so you can have a better look. So number 5, this is our 5th row. Once again, we slip stitch into next chain 1 space, then we're going to chain 2 because we're still on granny squares, 2 DC in same space, and then we should be up to brackets. Chain 2, yes, done that. Right, this space that we're going into will be the first chain 3 space, not chain 2 space. Yes, it will be. Got to double check these things. Now we want to chain 2, skip cluster, and 3 DC, chain 1, 3 DC. Sorry, this is a squared bracket, and you're going to say, what's that for? I will tell you in a second. So this bit in the rounded brackets goes in the chain 3 space, in chain 3 space, right? Then we want to chain 2, because the chain 3 space was first, you see, right there. Chain 2, then we want to skip a cluster, 3 DC in chain 2 space. Okay, and that is the square brackets. Alright, so square brackets is the whole thing. Round brackets is just what you do in the chain 3 space. And then this whole square one, we repeat around. I haven't written how many times. Repeat around. That's my symbol for repeat it all the way around. We have a chain 2 at the end, and then we want to join with a slip stitch. I will count up at the end how many clusters we ended up with, just so we have a record. So take that off. Always put your working loop onto a stitch marker if you have to do stuff. It helps and it saves a lot of frustration. Yeah, so we do our 2 slip stitches, 1 and 2. That's here. Now we want to chain 2 and then 2 DC, 2 DC, and then we want to chain 2, slip. Now just double check I'm doing the right thing. That was a 3. No, that's not correct. Alright, I have made a mistake. This has to be in the 3 chain space, so therefore ignore this bit and ignore that one, just for the first one. Got to have it in the right chain space. So that's 1 and then another 3 DC, 2, 3. That was my bad in writing it out when I was making it. We're chaining 2. We're chaining 2. Yes, we are. 1, 2. Now this is the 2 chain space, so we're only putting 1 in there. See, I knew what we were doing. I just got the beginning bit wrong. Let me just show you. And then 2 DC here. So we started here, which meant our first chain space was a 3, not a 2, because it goes 3 then 2. So we have to put our increase in the 3 chain space. That's what this mess is. So we're putting 2 between. Yes, we are. That's over here. And now we're on to a 3 again. So this is our increase. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1. 1, 2, and 3. And we're chaining 2 between them, and then this is only 2 chains, so this is a single cluster. 1, 2, 3, chaining 2. Now we're on a 3 chain again, so that's 1, 2, 3, chain 1, 1, 2, 3, chain 2 between. So that's half of it done. So two clusters and a chain 1 in each 3 chain space, a single cluster in the 2 chain space. So you repeat that around, and I'll be back when I've got to the end, and I'll count them up and I'll put it on here and I'll tell you what to do next. Alright, we're back and this is done. And we have 6 double clusters and 6 single clusters to make the whole circle. I've put it there. And we also have a gauge for this one. So at this point, our piece should measure across 5.5 inches, which it pretty much does. Or, if you're working in metric, 14 centimeters, which it does. So we're going good. So that's what it's looking like now. Mine has progressed to the purpley blue, which is very pretty. So the next thing we're going to do is turn the page, because there's more to come. Once again, we start off with slip stitch into next chain space. Not going to make that mistake again. It will be the chain 1 space right there. but I'm not going to say that. And then we want to chain 2 DC in same space. Right, so that gives us our first cluster. And we want a bracket. We want chain 2, skip cluster, 3 DC. Right, and we're going to repeat that all the way around with a chain 2 at the end, and then join with a slip stitch to the first DC. Alright, you should have 18 clusters at the end of this. Okay, and if you want a gauge, do we want a gauge? We only just did a gauge there. We might leave the gauge. I don't think we need too many gauges. I have them if you want them. We keep measuring, we're not going to get anything done. So we're still with the 5mm hook. Take that off, put our hook back in. We are slip stitching across to the next space, which is the space between the first increase. We're going to chain 2 and make our first cluster. 1 and 2. Okay, I always do a chain 2 because if I do a chain 3 it leaves like a gap. Then we want to chain 2, skip a cluster and put 1 here, and this is all we're doing all the way around on this row. 2, 3. So it doesn't matter if it's a double or a single, we're just putting a single cluster in each one. So I'm going to do that because that's not particularly hard to do, and I will join with this slip stitch, and I'll be back to show you what it looks like and what the next instructions are. Alright, so that's done, and we do have 18 clusters all the way around, separated by chain 2 spaces. Looking quite pretty. So the next thing we're going to do, we're nearly at the end of the crown, so we want to, where are we, 7. Once again we are slip stitching into next chain space, 7, and then we want to chain 2, but we all want to put 3 DC into same space for 3. All the others have been 2, comma, and we want to chain 2. This is our spacer between the clusters. Skip cluster, and then we want 4 DCs into each space. And we want to repeat that around, ending with a chain 2, join with a slip stitch to first DC. So there's not a lot of difference with each row, but these tiny differences allow it to expand out. So this is not particularly hard to do. It's only a little bit different from what we've already been doing, and I will just do the first one, you know, for old time's sake. 2 stitches across, 2 up, and then 3 into the space now, which makes us like a fat cluster, because normally the clusters are 3, we have 4. So that's what we have there, and that's what you're going to be doing all the way around, separated by a chain 2 every time. Let's do one more. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 2. So that's all we're going to do all the way around, and I will be back when that is done. Alright, so that is that row done. So we still have 18 clusters, but they've now all got 4 DCs in each one, and we've got 2 chains between them. So on to the next one. Now rows 8 and 9 are done the same. we are chaining 1 and single crocheting all the way around. We need to put 2 SC in each 2 chain space. Okay, you should end up with 107 single crochets. Yeah, so the second one, so row 9, so we're going to go into spiral work for the side. So this 8 and 9 is the last 2 rows of the crown. So this is giving you the turn to go downwards. Right, so at the end of this row, we need to, don't join with a slip stitch. You want to just place a marker, hang on, SC into first SC, then place a marker so you know where the beginning of the row is, and then do your second row. Yes, and at the end of that, that's right, carry on for row 9. Okay, so it's 2 rows of single crochet, but on the second row, don't join with a slip stitch, just single crochet into the first stitch and then put a marker in it and carry on around. So I will just start that off. Here are all the cockies outside. So that's just our join with a slip stitch. So we chain 1, we want this one, so we'll go into that. That'll be our first one. 2, 3. All right, then we got the 2 here. So we're just going around the chains and just single crocheting. 2, 3, 4. Now remember, because we joined with a slip stitch, we need to have another stitch here, otherwise we're going to be 1 short, because there's actually supposed to be 4 in there, but our join lost us that one. So I will come back after I've done those 2 rows, because they're just single crochets. Just remember to put a marker in your first stitch when you go past it, and I will be back to tell you what to do next. Then we'll be working on the sides of the hat. Alright, so that's that done. Now I've put my working loop on 1 stitch marker. This stitch marker is denoting where the first stitch is. And we are going to be moving into doing the sides now. This is the crown finished. Now if you want a gauge check, your crown piece should measure approximately 8 1/4 inches. This is unstretched. Now I've done this to fit my head. If you have a smaller than average head, I would change your hook size rather than changing the pattern, and it should bring you down. What you need to measure is you need to measure from the highest part of your forehead, basically where your hairline starts, to the back of your skull, probably about 1 inch above where it drops into your neck. You know, a little curve at the back of your neck at the bottom of the skull. So 1 inch less than that, and from the hairline, and that should give you how big this part of the crown should be, or close to it. There is a bit of stretch in this, so within 1 inch or 2 is all right. So next thing, we are moving on to the sides. Now if you look on my hat that I've made, the sides have been done with a stitch that's called moss stitch. It's also been called, I think, granite stitch and linen stitch. But what it is very simple. It's just single crochet, chain, single crochet, chain. But what you've got to remember, for it to work in a spiral, you need to have an odd number of stitches to start with. So that's why we have 107, so that it's odd. So if yours is bigger or smaller, it will still work as long as it's an odd number. So if you have more than 107, that's fine as long as it's odd. That way the patterning will work. And all you need to do for this is just You do need to keep a track of where your first stitch is. So we'll put that one in. So this is here. So every second row your stitch should be on a chain, then it's on a stitch, then it's on a chain. So single crochet, chain 1, skip 1 into the next, chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the next, and that is literally all you are doing. We've got our chain, skip, next one, and we're going to be doing that. Let me write it down for you. Put that up here. Where's my pen? So we're moving to moss stitch. I'm writing this down so I can show you at the end. Which is single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, and that's all you do all the way around. Remember, we're in a spiral, and if you see yourself starting to stack, it means that you've lost a stitch because your numbers are now even. They need to be odd. That's a spiral. Anyway, so they shouldn't stack. So on your next go past the stitch marker, that should be a chain, not a stitch. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to repeat this for approximately 20 rows, or until this bit, so the bit we're making now, this part measures 2.5 inches. 2.5 inches. Okay, so you can have this bit longer too if you would like, but what you have to remember is this part is basically your forehead, and the brim will sit slightly lower than it. So the longer this is, the lower the brim will sit. You need to be able to see, so don't make this part too big. I wouldn't go under 2 inches. So maybe do the 20 rows, put it on your head and see where it sits. If it sits in line with your eyebrows, it's pretty close to right. You could be just above the eyebrows. That would still be all right, because we do have to do this stay row here. So it's approximately 20 rows depending on your tension, and you are just going around and around and around and around and around and around. And what will happen, because we're not adding any stitches, it will start cupping under, which is what we want it to do. And I'm not going to show you me doing 20 rows of moss stitch. That will be incredibly boring. The reason why I picked moss stitch is because when you wear it, it spreads apart. It makes little holes, and I thought that would be really good when you're out in the sun for ventilation. Let me see if I can stretch it. Can you see the holes I'm making? That's the stitch doing that. So as you wear it, it will give you some ventilation holes. So I will go off and do this. I will be back once my 20 rows are done, and I will show you the stay stitch row, and then we'll be up to putting the brim on. Okay, so I have done my rows, and it wasn't 20 rows for me this time. It was last time. This time, to get me to, now you got to remember, this marker is where I started doing moss stitch, and I am just on the 2.5 inches, like I said. It was only 15 rows, so go with the measurement rather than the row amount, because everybody's stitch height's the same, even mine between two different hats. So I will put this out, and I'll be using this one up here now because it's in the first stitch. So the next thing we want to do, you need to have a hold of your ring. Hopefully you can see that. Now I'm using a slightly bigger ring that I did last time. This is the size I had before. This one is about 1 inch bigger all the way around. Yeah, it looks like it. So this one I'm going to use this time is 40 centimeters or 15.5 inches across this way. You can wrap it if you'd like to. This one is galvanized, so I don't think I need to wrap it. I just might need to do the double stitching at the end, which I'm going to show you anyway. So that's all cool. But before we start doing that, we need to do the last 2 rows of the side. So we are down to, done the 10, that's that bit. So now we are on the stay stitches. So for the first one, we're gonna call that 10, just so that we know which one we're at. We are starting with a HDC, so no chain ups, because we've been working in the spiral. We don't need to chain up, so we need a HDC, and then we are single crochet in every stitch and chain all the way around. Okay, once again, that should bring us back to 107 stitches. Then you will at the end join with a slip stitch to the HDC, and that will be the end of all the side. That's the end of the side. I may go to the next page for the brim, because there's more space than I have left. So we'll just say end of side. Right, so we'll just do that one. Actually, no, what I might do, I'll just show you how to start that. Please excuse the kid next door, he's very excited. So we were down there, we've stopped on the first one. Now I'm going to undo this one, because this was my actual first stitch, and we're going to make that one a half double crochet, just so it's a little bit taller than the other stitches. That'll enable us to make it back into rows again. And then you just, in every chain and in every stitch, every chain, every stitch. So you can see that, I hope. That's how it's in our first one, the half double crochet. It's that one there, but because it's half double crochet, it's blending into the last chain. But that'll be to our benefit when we join up. So every stitch, every chain, every stitch, every chain. So I'm just going to put that on a stitch marker, because you don't need to see me just do single crochets. That's really boring. And I might change the page to here. So now we are on the brim. That's why we needed our ring. Okay, so the first step of the brim, I'm going to call this 12, because that's how many instruction rows we've had. We're going to chain 1, because the last row we finished with a join with a slip stitch. Now we are back post single crochet all the way around. Now if you're wanting to do a back, I'm going to show you on here. I haven't done the rest of this row, but I'm just going to show you how to do a back post single crochet. It sounds more difficult than it is. So what do we got? We've got a chain next, so let's just do the chain. Right, so if I was doing a back post single crochet, just make sure my focus is where I want it. We're going there and there. It's basically under the V's, like so. And what it does is it just like tips the stitch over, so you get the V there, and then you get this one attached to the back of it. So undo that and show you again. That's our chain. That's our stitch in our chain. We're going in that hole and in the next hole. We're actually going under the join of the stitch, and like that. And you're going to do that all the way around, and what that will do, let me just put the stitch marker back on, it will give us a firmer edge at the bottom of the hat. Let me show you on this one. That is this row here. Can you see the little V's going around? This is the last row, the single crochet row, and then this yellow one that you can just see here is the back post, and it's just tilted that over to give you a definite start to your brim. So I will go and do those 2 rows, and I'll be back because the next one after that is the granny stitch breather row and then on to the very end, and we're just about done. Alright, I forgot to say at the end here, join with a slip stitch to first back, that's a B, post in single crochet, and that's what I'm just doing now. Let's go back one so you can see. That was our first, so just go in like this and like that and then like that. So that is our row. So like I said, this row here stops the hat from stretching out too much, just holds it in a little bit. Now if you find your hat ends up stretching too much, what you can do is you can get some grosgrain ribbon, which should be at any like material store, and make a headband around your temples where you want the hat to sit, and make it so it's comfortably tight, not tight, but you know, you can put it on but you can just feel it, and then sew that to the inside of the hat just above this line, and that'll stop your hat from stretching out. So we have done that. We will put the marker on there so we can write the next part out. This is row 13. So just put a line there. We've still got 107 stitches too. So row 13, we want to chain 2 where we're at. Then we want to DC, and then we're going to put a bracket. We're going to skip 1, chain 1, and then we're going to go 3 double crochets. Now these are not all in the same stitch, they're in subsequent stitches. So 1, 2, 3 in 3 different single crochets. Alright, so repeat all the way around till last 2 stitches, and you want to do 1 DC, then join with a slip stitch, because you know, you need to chain 1 in there. Why isn't there a chain 1 in there? There should be a chain 1 in there. We'll just go and join with the slip stitch to first DC, not the chain 2. And what that'll do is it'll make it look like there's 3. I don't even know if I can find my one. Oh, here we go. So there's my chain. And there. Actually, mine looks like 4, but this will give you 3. Sorry. Okay, so we've done that one. And then we want to slip stitch to next chain 1. Okay, you should have 27 clusters. But remember, they're not all in the same stitch. They're in 3 separate single crochets that's separated by a chain 1. And I will be back when I have done that. Alright, so I have done that. Now I wanted to show you right at the end, the first DC goes into the slip stitch from the row before to make that visually look like another cluster. This is something I worked out after I did my other hat. That's why my other hat looks slightly different. But anyway, so that's our like vent row done. That is the beginning of the brim. So we are now going to swap to the size 4. I bet you were wondering when we were going to get to that. Let's write down what we're doing before we do it. So with sweeps, I'll write on here, swap to 4mm. Of course, if you're making a smaller hat and you've already swapped, stay how you are. Now we want 14. We are going to single crochet all the way around. Oh, we don't need to do that. We just need to go like that. But we need to get to 110. So you increase. Now, increasing with single crochet is just 2 into the same stitch, nothing fancy. As needed, evenly. So if you were still on 107 up here, you need to get to 110. So you need to add 7, 8, 9, 10, 3 stitches evenly around, however you'd like to. Increase as needed evenly to equal 110 stitches, right? Because we're coming into making the solid part of the brim. We are also going to be going into a spiral, so we need to place marker in first SC because we're going into spiral. Always important to mark your first stitch. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you the rest of it because it's very repetitive. So we're going to be, I'll show you on this one. This way, no, this way's the right way. If you can see them, I'll tap the screen just to make sure. You might be able to just see my increases all the way around. But we're only doing them on every second row, and we're going, because we've got 110 stitches, we're going to go single crochet 9, increase in the 10th because it's divisible by 10. But the next row will be plain, then the row after that will be single crochet 10, increase into the 11th stitch, and gradually work our way out doing that. So that written down. So that's that one. So for row 15, we are single crochet times 9 and then increase. And then we repeat all the way around. But 16, single crochet all the way around. 17. Is a repeat of this, but it's one more out, so it's single crochet times 10, then an increase, a repeat around. If you can see what I'm doing here, so then 18 is a repeat of this one. Okay, so you keep repeating these 2 instructions, but with this number increasing each time. Now you can mark every single increase as you go if you would like, but they will be visible because they do look subtly different every time you go around. So you can mark them all if you want, so you know when you get to them, but that's a lot of markers to move every time you go around. So I just put one in the first of the row and just keep an eye out for them. So you're going to go until you're in the first stitch of the row below, above the last increase, and then increase into the one you added the time before. Hopefully that makes sense. And you need to keep going. Let me get all this in front of me. Until your hat sitting in the middle. This one's not going to sit very well yet, but we'll pretend. Right, so just make sure you can see that. This is our hat sitting in the middle. So we want the brim to come out until we're about, say, 2 fingers width away from the wire all the way around. Because we want it tight, but we don't want to be stretching like mad because then the middle bit will be too loose. So about the width of 2 fingers, or I've lost my tape measure, even 1 finger, but that might be too loose. So I'd go 2 fingers. So lay it out however big your hoop ended up being. Lay your hat in the middle as best you can, and you need to repeat these rows until you're about 2 fingers away. So to me that looks like about 2 inches worth of crochet that you need to do all the way around. I'm not going to tell you how many rows that is because it depends on what size hoop you have. At a guess, let me look at my one, because this is a smaller hoop. So that's 3 rows, 6, 9, 12. So mine was about 12 for this hoop, but this hoop is smaller than my new hoop. So I'm going to guess that I would have to do about 15 rows to be in the right spot to be able to do this. Yours may be different, so just keep measuring it, keep checking it, but make sure you're using the smaller hook because we want these stitches to be tighter than all the ones we've done before. We're working in a spiral, so just keep going around and around and around and around, but make sure you put your marker back on the first stitch every time so you know when to do a plain row and when to do an increased row. And once that is done, I'll be back to put the wire in and finish off. But that'll be a while for me, quick for you, but a while for me, because this is going to take a while. So I'll see you with that bit. So this is my hat done, well, the blue hat done. And I did actually run out of the yarn we were using. And I ran out on this, so it's like the 4th last row. So I had to do 3 rows with my backup yarn. And if you remember at the beginning, I said, whatever yarn you pick from, you know, whatever yarn. When I made my rainbow hat, I had leftovers from these balls, but because this hat has a bigger brim, I have actually run out. So I said to have a backup yarn that matches in with the colorings that you pick, and that's this one. So I'm using this yarn here, and I think I've got it big enough. So I'll just bring my hoop in. You might notice it's white now. I'll tell you about that in a minute. So it's just under 2 fingers narrower than the hoop if it's in the center. That's perfect. What I think I said before, but what'll happen if you're matching this exactly, your hat will become a bowl. We want this smaller so it pulls out straight. But we don't want it too much smaller, because what it does is it stretches the actual crown part of the hat too much and it won't hug to your head very well. So it's got to be smaller but not too much smaller. So that's why I was going with the 2 fingers. So with my 2 fingers like this on the side, I can feel the edge of the hat under here and the edge of the brim under there. So 1 finger with nothing under it. And it's pretty close to that all the way around. Other thing I've done, this hoop was galvanized, which means it won't rust unless it's immersed in water. But what galvanizing does, as it gets older, it gets rougher, and I needed it to be a bit smoother. So I have wrapped this with white electrical tape. If I hold it up, you might be able to see it. You can maybe see the winding. So it's just round, just covering part of it all the way around. And because it's electrical tape, if you pull it tight, it glues to itself. It sucks in. I don't really know how to explain it, but it won't come off. So that's just from Bunnings, which is our hardware store here. Another thing I want to say, I'm using this yarn because this is what's the nicest thing that I've got available to me here. I do realize this is a lot thinner yarn than a lot of my subscribers would normally use. You can use a thicker yarn as long as you keep checking your gauge. That's why I was giving you lots of gauge measurements. So if you want to use a 10 ply or a worsted weight or something that you like, you can just keep an eye on your gauge so the hat will still fit. That being said, the thicker your hat, the heavier it is. With a nice thin ply, it's not heavy and you won't overheat. Other thing I want to say before I show you how to do this is the difference in sizes for the amount of yarn. So this one I made first is about 2 inches smaller than the hoop I'm using now, and I had leftover of the original yarn ball when I made this one. So it really does depend on how big you want your brim size to be. Right, I ended up with this one. We went up to 17, so single crochet 17, then an increase all the way around. That was my last row. Of course, we're putting a plain row between each one to give you an idea of the size. The other hat was only 15, so it's 3 increase rows smaller. 2 increase, 15, 16, 2 increase rows smaller. Right, I think that's everything I had to tell you. So the next step is to attach it to the hoop. Now, this can be awkward. I'm going to try my best to show you under here. I usually go somewhere where I've got a lot of space around me, because you might be clanging and banging for a bit. But what you want to do, put your hoop, your hook, loop on your hook. Make sure that your wool is behind. Now, I'm going to have to come back a bit for this to fit under the camera. And I'm going to try and be right there. So hopefully you can see. So the wool or yarn is behind. Now what we want to do, go into the next hoop, the next stitch. We're going to pull a loop from behind the hoop, and then we want to pull it through like a normal single crochet. Let's do it again. Pull from behind and then pull through on top. Hard to see because I'm so far away now. Let's just try that again. So we're going under the hoop, pick up a loop, bring it back to the top, pull another loop through, finish off. Go slowly because it's very awkward until you get the most of the hat onto the hoop. And another reason why I wrapped my hoop is because the darker color would show through more. The white doesn't show through as much. Now this is all you have to do to attach your hat. As you get round, because I've made this smoother, it'll now work, spread your stitches out so you can get all the way around the hoop. And if you want to, because you're still working in a spiral, you can just go over the stitches again. What I mean is when we come to here and these are all attached, you can go over and go in the same hole on top of the stitches you've done, and what that'll do is spread the threads apart and cover more of your hoop. So this is all we're doing to attach the hat to the hoop, and once this is done, your hat is finished. And one more like so, and you can twist it around a bit so you can see the white. So I will probably do a second row just to cover that up, and then secure your ends, weave them in, and wear your hat. Right, so I've just got around to the end. Here I am here, and you can definitely see little gaps in the edge, which I will be covering. So I was just going to show you how I start that off. Other thing I wanted to say is it will get tight because this is smaller, so you need to pull the piece up and do the stitch. So pull up, do the stitch, and then shuffle it around until it's evenly spaced. So let's make sure we have this in the right spot. We are still working in a spiral. So now to do the next row, I'm just going to go into the same spot, pull up and make a stitch. Into the same spot, well, the next stitch, pull up, make a stitch. I'll do 3 and then I can show you. Alright, so that's my third one. Now, if we wiggle these, the yarn spreads apart, and you can see that it's not so visible. So I'm just going to keep doing that around one more time, and then my hat is finished. Like I said, if your hoop size is different, your row sizes and stitch counts on your last row might be different, but the steps will be the same. See, now we're going like that. Keep pushing it back. Alright, so the next time you see this, it'll be finished. And that will be in a tick for you, but a little bit longer for me. And we're all done. It's finished. I haven't put all the strings in yet. I did have the other one around here to show you the difference. I don't know where it's gone, but if you remember it, it was like green with yellow and purple on it. So anyway, this one is bigger. Just take my word for it. And I think it's come out really well. If I put it on my head, it covers right out to the edge of my shoulders. The other one was in a bit, if you remember. Anyway, so this is all done. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and feel free to use it as much as you like, because I haven't done it as a pattern for sale, so do what you want. And I hope you have a great year, and I will see you on the next video. Please like, share and subscribe, and if you have any ideas for other things you'd like to see, let us know.